So now we are being recorded. And again, my name is Nicole King, assistant professor here at the University of Rhode Island, and I'm joined by my colleague, Jeanne Mullaney, here to talk about how we can use Vosaic in the support of qualitative data analysis. We are both a part of the URI Translanguaging Lab. So here are some of the core aims of the URI Translanguaging Lab. Laura, do you want me to talk about that or,
I'm
oh,
happy to. Do you want to share your screen?
yes, let me do that. I thought I was sharing.
No worries. It was lovely seeing your face. I appreciated that.
Sure.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So hi, everybody. I just wanted to say a quick hello on behalf of the URI Translanguaging Lab. My name is Dr. Laura Hamman-Ortiz, and I'm the director of the lab and run this lab with my colleagues, Dr. Nicole King, Dr. Steve Christmas, and Dr. Amy Correa. If you haven't heard of our lab yet, the website is on that screen, and I'll drop it in the chat. It's a new lab that we launched in the fall, and the aim of our lab is to research multilingualism and multilingual learning. And you can see some of our core aims are not only to, engage in this research, but also to really center the linguistic justice aims of translanguaging scholarship and translanguaging as a practice and as a pedagogy, to mentor emerging scholars, our doc students, our wonderful doc students like Jean and Nataki, who's here, and Cassie, and many others who are part of the lab, to support professional learning for researchers and educators. So events like this help us do that, and to develop and disseminate research resources around translanguaging. So we hope you will stay in touch with us, and we hope to continue to have different events like this, and continue to support translanguaging research. I put a couple of pictures, one of Ophelia Garcia, who visited us, was that 2 weeks ago now, last week, on campus, and was a wonderful way to kick off the work of the lab, and a picture from a project that we're doing right now, led by Dr. Steve Christmas around linguistic landscapes, looking at languaging in our home state of Rhode Island. And if you want to click to the next slide, Nicole, if you aren't yet on our newsletter, I'll drop her name in the chat as well. Our grad coordinator, Vanessa Lombardi, can put you on the listserv if you'd like to receive our monthly newsletter, where we tell you about different events happening, some of the work we're doing, and some of the scholarship that's coming out of it. So with that, I will pass it back to Dr. King, and thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hamman-Ortiz. Nataki and Cassie, could you do me a favor and watch the chat as Jean and I are presenting in case any questions or things come up so we can address them at the end of the presentation? Okay, so we are talking all about what is Vosaic. I'm curious, go ahead in the chat and mention if you've used Vosaic or its predecessor, Studio Code. So that's how I became familiar with Vosaic. I used Studio Code for part of my dissertation data analysis, and it allows for multimodal discourse analysis, the ways in which you can look and see how people are expressing their performed identities, their power relations, their language ideologies, all communicated both multimodally and across different named languages. And so not only can it be used for research purposes, but it can also be used for targeted video professional development. We're going to talk a little bit about that at the kind of towards the end of this presentation, because we are situating the presentation within the theory of humanizing pedagogy. So very much you could use these targeted clips in order to support the moves that teachers can make to engage in humanizing pedagogy with their students. It stores videos as parts of projects, and you're able to code them using forms, which are very easy to create. They have little buttons that toggle when a certain code is happening, whether it is pedagogical language knowledge or student empowerment or critical consciousness. And you can also set that form up so that it is recording a certain amount of time before and after the moment. So like suppose you want to know what is happening 5 seconds before this particular event happens. Well, you can program that into the platform so that way you have that additional information to really look and see how those performed identities, how those performed language ideologies are happening in the classroom. The codes are specific to each of the projects. We're going to show you the platform in a second. And there also is an AI component that you could use to identify themes and potential codes. I have not used that part of the platform yet, but it is available, and there are tutorial videos available on the site in case you are interested in that component. Obviously, with any sort of uh, platform in which you are storing data, you do need to receive permission from your university's IT services. So, like here at URI, if you would like to use Vosaic, you are approved to go. So, other universities, you'd have to go through that same process, which is easy or difficult depending on where you are. So what is multilingual multimodal discourse analysis? So you are seeing some of the codes that I've done, some of the transcription that I've done before when you're really thinking about the use of contextualization cues. So you're thinking about, so where are their hands? Where's their eye gaze? Both combining both the linguistic and the multimodal components of discourse analysis as students are expressing themselves. So they're saying, lift the whiteboards if you find this disagreeable. So lift your whiteboards if you find it disagreeable, cringing motion. Lift the whiteboards. So if you find it agreeable. And so he's motioning. You're going to watch these videos in a second, and you're going to see the ways in which both the linguistic and the multimodal forms of communication pair along the way. Similar here of thinking about uh, multimodal interaction analysis. I'm thinking specifically about Sigrid Norris and her theory on modal density and the ways in which people are expressing themselves linguistically, spatially, gesturally. And so this is a way to get across all of those moments of communication that are important and valid and legitimate ways of expressing ourselves. We're going to use Mosaic though to look at this. And so Mosaic is something that is helpful. I'm actually going to switch the share so you can kind of see what it looks like to create the project. So you see, this is the project, Humanizing Pedagogy. And in a second, Jeanne is going to talk to us about some of the theory behind humanizing pedagogy. But some of the moves that teachers make to engage in humanizing pedagogy are translanguaging, relevant content, pedagogical language knowledge, trusting relationships, critical consciousness, and student empowerment. So you can see how this form is created in order to create the coding window. Okay. And that is part of this project, humanizing pedagogy. So you're here, you're putting us in there. You're saying who has the rights to do different elements to the codes, who can upload videos, who can edit the videos, who can mark up the videos, that kind of thing. And then you have the videos themselves. And so this is the main video we're going to talk about, Mr. Team 1. And then in a little bit, we're going to go to this Translanguaging 1, relevant content 2, pedagogical language knowledge 1, because those are the clips that we pulled out of this larger video. And I'll show you kind of what this looks like. So let's watch and mark up this. We're not actually going to watch it right now. You can see there are your codes, and those are the mark of those specific instances. And a little bit after Jeanne has talked to us about how we developed our coding window, we're going to talk about how this was developed over time. I'm going to switch us back over to our slides. Just one second. So we created our project, Humanizing Pedagogy. We uploaded the videos. The videos uploaded to this were about one particular instructional event that lasted a total of an hour and a half. The videos were broken up into about 30-minute 30-minute periods of duration, and then from there, coding each of those 30-minute videos. That's a lot of information, a lot of videos that's happening in English and French, a little bit of Arabic. That's a lot of things that are happening in a second grade classroom. That's really too much to really start to think about. Mosaic allows you to think about your codes of what it is you're looking for and then minimize it. So you are thinking about how you can create those moments, those telling moments that are happening across an instructional event that you need to engage in transcription, that you need to look for those contextualization cues. Maybe you're looking at modal density. Maybe you're doing systemic functional analysis of transitivity or mood, whatever it is you're doing. This allows you to kind of pinpoint those moments that you would like to focus on for your analysis. Okay, so that's the coding window. That's the form we talked about. Very easy to create. At the end, we can do a form together so you can see how easy it is to create a form together. So that way you can look and see how you could investigate something that you are looking into. Okay. We showed you the videos to code in Vosaic. Okay, so now I'll be quiet for a little bit and Jean will talk to us about theory.
Thanks. Now that you have a sense of how Vosaic works, we're going to look at some examples of its use to study humanizing supports in a bilingual French and English second grade classroom, as Dr. King just told us. But before we go to those examples, I'm going to share with you a little bit of background and theory on humanizing pedagogy based on my literature review of two key conceptual pieces that build on Paulo Freire's philosophy of education and 10 empirical studies from which I gleaned common themes regarding ways that a humanizing approach is enacted in the classroom. So to begin, humanizing pedagogy is an asset-based, student-centered approach to teaching that values multilingual learners' languages and cultures and treats their prior knowledge as a strength and foundation for learning. Two seminal conceptual studies that extend Paulo Freire's philosophy of education in ways particularly relevant to multilingual learners ground the literature on humanizing pedagogy. And they are Lilia Bartolomé's article, Beyond the Methods Fetish, Toward a Humanizing Pedagogy from 1994, and then Maria del Carmen Salazar's A Humanizing Pedagogy, Reinventing the Principles and Practice of Education as a Journey Toward Liberation from 2013. Could you go to the next slide, please? So in Beyond the Methods Fetish, Toward a Humanizing Pedagogy, Bartolomé's conceptual article connects power relations and deficit views of minority students to their academic underachievement. As the title indicates, she argues that a focus on methods alone will not improve the lackluster academic achievement of some minoritized students. Instead, she asserts that a humanizing pedagogy that respects and elevates the background of culturally and linguistically subordinated students will be more effective than generic teaching methods adopted and implemented without considering the student population. So in her article, Bartolomé examines what she terms dehumanizing pedagogy, referencing Paulo Freire's use of the term humanizing pedagogy, and she refers to approaches in teaching that strip students of the cultural, linguistic, and familial aspects that make them unique. Bartolomé also cites Freire in her assertion that the role of educators is a political act that is never neutral. She states that teachers can become conscious of and subsequently challenge the role of educational institutions and their own roles as educators in maintaining a system that often serves to silence students from subordinated groups. Thus, Bartolomé advocates for a shift in perspective to consider the socio-historical and political aspects of education and work actively to cultivate the type of environment in which minoritized and often multilingual learners can thrive. She also recommends two promising practices: culturally responsive instruction and strategic teaching, both of which empower learners. While culturally responsive instruction focuses on creating instructional situations that prioritize culturally different ways of learning, it also seems to produce conditions that tend to equalize power relations in the classroom by giving learners a voice in the instructional dynamics. Similarly, strategic teaching, which emphasizes explicitly teaching students learning strategies that allow them to reflect on and check their own learning, empowers them as learners in the classroom in a different way. Likewise, Maria del Carmen Salazar also invokes Freire's vision of education, the concept of humanization, and the educator's role in the process in her chapter, Humanizing Pedagogy, Reinventing the Principles and Practice of Education as a Journey Toward Liberation. Del Carmen Salazar proposes 10 teaching approaches that expand on Bartolomé's two promising practices of culturally responsive teaching and strategic teaching. And these 10 principles and practices of humanizing pedagogy are themes that you kind of heard Nicole hint at, and we'll see them again when we watch Monsieur Brahim teach his classes. So number one is that the reality of the learner is crucial. The second important principle and practice is that critical consciousness is imperative for students and educators. Third is students' sociocultural resources are valued and extended. Fourth, content is meaningful and relevant to students' lives. Fifth, students' prior knowledge is linked to new learning. Sixth, trusting and caring relationships advance the pursuit of humanization. 7, mainstream knowledge and discourse styles matter. 8, students will achieve through their academic, intellectual, social abilities. 9, student empowerment requires the use of learning strategies. And 10, challenging inequity in the educational system can promote transformation. So like Bartolome, Del Carmen Salazar focuses on Freire's concept of conscienciação, translated as critical consciousness, or sometimes consciousness raising from Portuguese. As Freire put it, conscienciação is learning to perceive social, political, and economic contradictions and to take action against the oppressive elements of reality. Del Carmen Salazar also warns that Freirean pedagogy cannot be reduced to reproducible technical concepts or universally applicable and decontextualized techniques, skills, or methods, but rather must be adapted to the instructional environment, which is again echoing Bartolome's caution against applying pedagogical methods indiscriminately. Oh, perfect. So here are some examples of the specific humanizing supports that we'll see in the classroom clips in just a few moments. First, there's valuing students' first language and translanguaging, in other words, using various languages to support learning. Next, there's using relevant content that is appropriate and interesting to learners. Then there's applying pedagogical content knowledge. And when we're teaching languages, this means that knowing about languages and how languages work. Building strong and trusting relationships is about a foundation of mutual respect in a classroom that is characterized by humanizing instruction. Developing critical consciousness is another critical element, and it's about raising students' awareness of injustice, but not just raising their awareness of it, because the last part is empowering students, helping them to know that they have a voice and they can act honorably against injustice. Nicole, I think we're ready to look at the coding window.
Perfect. So now we are here where we've always wanted to be, which is we get to watch Mr. Brahim engage in humanizing pedagogy. It's going to be pretty amazing. So I'm going to switch our share over so that we can look at the video in the coding window. Just one second. Okay. So what I'm going to do first to kind of set up the clips we're going to watch of the ways in which he engaged in translanguaging, relevant content, pedagogical language knowledge, trusting relationships, critical consciousness, and empowering students is to play just a little bit of this so you can see how we coded this information using humanizing pedagogy as our theoretical frame. So I'm going to make sure that sound is shared before I do anything. It is. Please let me know if you can't hear the sound. So as we go through, you'll kind of see the different moments that are being highlighted. We're only going to watch this for about 1 minute, and then I'm going to switch us over to the moments so you can see the moments of each of the different codes. And then we're going to switch over back to the slides, and you're going to be able to see where we pulled them out, and we'll explain exactly how we did this. This prepares you for any qualitative research presentation you're about to give very easily, pulling out those moments of code for you. You don't have to use any kind of a media snip tool or whatever. Vosaic will do it for you. So let's watch 1 minute of this. I'm going to set it up real quick. So they are looking at Antonyms and synonyms, specifically content et mécontent. So content is happy, mécontent is kind of unhappy. They'll talk a little bit about malheureuse and heureuse. So mal is the synonym, the prefix on heureuse, making from happy to unhappy. So again, we're talking about synonyms and antonyms. And what he's doing is he's showing them images of things that make them happy, content, et mécontent, unhappy. For example, things like butterflies, or perhaps a spider with its mandibles exposed, or perhaps this marsupial with these big red eyes, different things, right? That are engaging to second graders. So let's watch him for about a minute, and then we're going to talk about each of the clips that were coded.
On va voir encore un autre. Alors on a dit, quel est le antonyme de content? Antonyme de content. Antonyme. Mécontent. Alors, regardez très bien. Mécontent. Je vais mettre le préfixe en rouge. Mécontent. Et l'antonyme de content, n'est-ce pas? Mais quel est le synonyme de mécontent? Synonyme de mécontent. Pensez bien. Content égale heureux. Et mécontent est l'opposé de content. Quel est le synonyme de mécontent?
Content.
Synonyme. Presque. Très bien. C'est mal.
Heureux.
C'est mal.
L'heureux.
Ils sont
That was just a minute of this, just to kind of get us started. And you can see he's already tapping into that pedagogical language knowledge, directly drawing their attention to the ways in which prefixes change the meaning of words and then connecting them to the synonyms of knowledge, that content knowledge that they already know, things that make them happy and unhappy. Now let's switch over to the moments. So across the 30 minutes of the first part of this lesson, there were 9 moments in which they were engaging in translanguaging, 7 in which they were engaging in relevant content, but some of those were pretty long moments. 8 moments of pedagogical language knowledge, 4 really showing trusting relationships, 2 showing critical consciousness, and 2 showing student empowerment. Let me show you what this looks like. So they're all pulled out right here. And you can see how long each of the clips were. So it was 20 seconds, 15 seconds, 35 seconds, 32 seconds. So you're seeing exactly like how long these moments are lasting, relevant content. Some of these are pretty long, like 31 seconds, a minute, 27 seconds. So you can kind of see how long those are. I'm going to switch us over now to the slides, and you're going to see the specific moments that we coded for that were really exemplar in the ways in which they were demonstrating each of the codes. And I'll talk in a second about how we snipped them out. So let me switch the share over. Okay, first up, translanguaging.
Ed, what's the prefix that I added to heureux to create the antonyme? Pas mais, heureux. Mal. Il y a encore le préfixe mal. Ok? Alors,
Did you want to summarize that moment?
Sure. So this first clip demonstrates Monsieur Brahim's translanguaging with his students. We notice that he asks in English first what the prefix is, and then once he knows that his student understands, he switches right back to French to continue his demonstration, his explanation, his sort of eliciting from them what is the prefix, and how do we make this antonyme, which also is highlighting his pedagogical language knowledge. You'll notice that when you watch Monsieur Brahim, he's often enacting several aspects of humanizing pedagogy at the same time, at any given time, really. Thank you.
I think that's an important point. A lot of these codes are intersectionally coded, where they're happening, multiple of them are happening at the same time. We saw that on the coding window in that screen. And it'll be similar for relevant content, the ways in which he is connecting this lesson on antonyms and synonyms directly to their lived experiences.
Et je vais vous montrer des photos. Je vais vous montrer une photo et je vais vous demander, par exemple, agréable ou désagréable. Alors, et vous allez écrire le mot sur la doise, ok? Donc, Malik, est-ce que tu peux donner les feutres? Les feutres, ils sont derrière toi.
So in this example of Monsieur Ibrahim's humanizing pedagogy, that of teaching with relevant content, we see him introduce what they're about to do, which is to react to photos that they're going to see up on the board by writing the word agréable, beautiful, or désagréable, ugly, on their whiteboards. And this is a really typical task for beginning language students, learning how to use adjectives to describe people and things. And Monsieur Ibrahim uses photos of animals and insects, which is really interesting for students of their age. So it's a great example of relevant content.
Then we'll switch into pedagogical language knowledge. And again, a lot of this is intersectionally coded because he very much is centering his students in their knowledge and in how he teaches language.
Je vais mettre le préfixe en rouge, mécontent, et l'antonyme de content, n'est-ce pas? Mais quel est le synonyme de mécontent? Synonyme de mécontent. Pensez bien, content égale.
So here we see an example of Monsieur Ibrahim's pedagogical language knowledge as he teaches prefixes and antonyms in French. He explains that the prefix mais is outlined in red on the board, and he connects it to the change in meaning in the word content or happy to mécontent or unhappy. This kind of knowledge is critical for language learners because it allows them to recognize meaning in unknown words by the prefix in front of a known word, and it's teaching them how the language works.
Now, it's interesting that he establishes his trusting relationships, student empowerment, and critical consciousness all embedded in this language lesson. So we're going to watch this particular moment kind of start to transform what is happening within this classroom space.
Pourquoi c'est désagréable, Serge? Toi, tu vas être le socialiste, le pacifiste parfait, monsieur. Pourquoi tu trouves que c'est désagréable? Pourquoi? Moi aussi, tu sais, entre parenthèses, j'aime pas trop les papillons. J'adore, je trouve que les ailes des papillons sont agréables, mais moi, j'aime pas le corps du papillon. Je le trouve un petit peu désagréable. J'aime pas avec les six pattes et tout ça, les antennes, ça me donne un petit peu. Okay.
And I don't like them.
Mais tu n'aimes pas ça. Allez, Zahar. Ok. Non, maintenant je vous montre une autre photo et vous allez me dire.
So this clip demonstrates how Monsieur Ibrahim forges strong, trusting relationships with his students by his interest in their opinions and his defense of a dissenting opinion in the class. We saw how Monsieur Ibrahim moves close to the student who opines that a butterfly is ugly to show kind of his solidarity while he asks the student to explain his view. He also uses little translanguaging. He switches to French to restate part of what the student said in English. And what I love most about this particular video is his affection for and his pride in his students are really clear in the way that he speaks to them, the way that he looks at them, and shows how pleased he is with their thinking and their learning.
Very much so. It's so nice that they're bonding over the papillon, the butterfly, and the ways, the feelers. Neither one of them find them to be agréable. Okay, so critical consciousness, all here in this moment, again, we're talking about things that are agreeable and disagreeable, and we're going to shift up and really thinking about how teaching is a political act, and you're conveying culture, you're conveying ideology, you're conveying power, you're conveying identity each and every single time that you teach.
Là, toi, si tu trouves que c'est agréable, Sylvie trouve que c'est... Pourquoi c'est agréable pour toi, Sylvie?
Because I actually kind of think it's cool.
Okay. And you know what? He's entitled to his own opinion. Because sometimes what you find beautiful or not beautiful can be the opposite in the eyes of others.
Because it has strong.
Because it depends on where you come from, it depends on your environment, it depends on your culture. Some things that we might find désagréable in our culture is actually agréable in other cultures. So we need to be respectful of that. Je vous montre la prochaine photo.
And in this example of Monsieur Brahim's humanizing pedagogy, when learners disagree about whether a photo is agréable or désagréable, he translanguages, he switches to English to develop his students' critical consciousness about how ideas of beauty are cultural and that there is no right or wrong idea about what is beautiful. He really exemplifies how teaching is a political act when he moves from a typical language learning task of characterizing photos and reacting to them with common adjectives. He elevates that to a deep discussion on how culture influences people's views on beauty and how these ideas depend on one's environment. And again, describing people and things, it's a standard activity that we all do as language teachers for beginning language learners. It's entirely appropriate for his classroom, but he takes it to an activity instead that exemplifies his way of developing critical consciousness in his students, even in students so young.
It's really amazing. Like literally, we could have selected any of the probably 100 hours I have of because I had the privilege to be in his class for my dissertation. So I was with him for 2 years. Could have selected any of them. The ways in which he successfully navigates between language content instruction, humanizing pedagogy, peace education. It is truly masterful. And then student empowerment.
Why, Marie?
Because it's their right to know what they like and do.
That was beautifully said.
So does she get a 100 or
Who gives me the right to tell me what is agréable and what is désagréable?
You!
No.
You! Us! I know. Mom and Dad.
Why do you guys fall here? What is your opinion influenced by? What is it? What's influencing your opinion to think that this is what's agréable? What is it? What's influencing your opinion? Why do you guys think dresses, necklaces, girls?
So in this last example of humanizing support, we see Monsieur Brahim empowering students by giving them a voice, encouraging them to share their opinions and to really think deeply about the questions he's asking them. The discussion he leads about beauty being cultural, it is a deep one for children of their age, but he shows such confidence in their ability to think critically about what he's asking and to hold such a conversation.
It so empowers them to engage in their agency in deciding they get to determine what is agreeable, what is disagreeable, and also to really confront the cultural norms that they are presented with each and every day.
So now that we've seen what this looks like, what humanizing pedagogy looks like in the classroom of a master teacher, I just want to share with you a more lyrical definition of humanizing pedagogy. It's a little bit more inspirational, and it definitely describes Monsieur Brahim's class. Humanizing pedagogy is the cultivation of a critical, loving learning environment that is meaningful to the individual and the collective, rich in both joy and struggle, and actively working against forces of dehumanization.
Okay. There's a lot of implications here for pedagogy. We are all here as teachers, as researchers, as teacher educators. This type of tool, Vosaic, could allow you to record yourself. You too could have a coding window where you're looking at humanizing pedagogy. Are you engaging in translanguaging? Are you connecting content to your students' lived experiences? How are you empowering your students? How are you raising up critical consciousness? In what ways are you engaging in trusting relationships with your students through your discourse? Code yourself. And that could be an incredibly powerful reflective tool for teachers to use to reflect upon themselves, whether it's humanizing pedagogy, culturally sustaining pedagogy, translanguaging pedagogy, trauma-informed pedagogy, or any type of pedagogy that you yourself as a teacher would like to improve upon. I could be thinking about the ways in which you're engaging in genre-based pedagogy for your writing, thinking about how are you building the field? How are you co-constructing the genres? How are you jointly constructing the genres? Like what are the moves you're making to enable your learners to be empowered with that agency and thinking about purpose, context, and audience in their writing? Lots of different things. The same is true for instructional coaches. These clips could be used to help to train teachers to look and to see like what are the moves that you can make embedded within a language lesson on antonyms and synonyms and prefixes, how you can engage in humanizing pedagogy, interesting relationships, and empowerment of students all within that single lesson. It'd be an incredibly powerful tool for dialogic PLC. So perhaps teachers are meeting monthly. Maybe they're coming with a video that they themselves have coded and they're sharing the codes and they have that great conversation about the codes and the ways in which they're engaging in whatever it is they're reflecting on in that particular moment. Incredibly powerful. Vosaic could be an incredibly powerful tool for pedagogy, for teacher reflection and for instructional coaches. The same is true for research. So we can see how we took an hour and a half long lesson and started to clip out these moments, these moves that we're seeing for humanizing pedagogy. These particular moments could then be transcribed. We could look at the contextualization cues. We could look at the interaction analysis and go fine grain. We could do a systemic functional analysis of each of those particular moments and look and see at the linguistic level, at the multimodal level, what specifically are those moves he's making to engage in humanizing pedagogy. This tool, again, allows you to really take a lot of data and turn it into these manageable chunks along the way to talk really systematically about how you're coding, what you're coding, and then presenting it in a way that is methodologically sound. Very much. You could use it as that iterative coding, looking at those telling moments, look at those discursive features, contextualization cues. It is incredibly helpful for presentations. So again, you don't have to go like into Windows Media Player or iMovie or whatever it is that you're using to clip out like the moments you want to show in your presentation. You've already done it in Vosaic because you've coded it in Vosaic. So you already have the moments. Each of those moments became their own video. All you have to do is then export them. Once you export them, they then become, I'm actually going to switch the share so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay. So these are the moments. I'm going to exit out of here. And let's go to the videos. Okay. So here's the critical consciousness video that we just watched. Let's watch it here.
La voix, si tu trouves que c'est agréable. Oh, Sylvie trouve que c'est pourquoi c'est agréable pour toi, Sylvie?
Because I actually kind of think it's cool.
Okay. And you know what? He's entitled to his own opinion. Because sometimes what you find beautiful or not beautiful can be the opposite in the eyes of others.
Because it has strong.
Because it depends on where you come from, it depends on your environment, it depends on your culture. Some things that we might find disagreeable in our culture is actually agreeable in other cultures. So we need to be respectful of that. Je vous montre la prochaine photo.
Right there. We could code even further, looking at translanguaging, relevant content, pedagogical language knowledge, trusting relationships, critical conscious, student empowerment. Specific moves right there in that little clipped video that's 39 seconds long. And you can take this, export this out, and then you can have the transcript right here. And let's select the transcript type. Oh, look at this. Automated language and speaker detection. They can do translanguaging. That's helpful. You don't have to say English transcriptions, French transcription. It will do it for you. You have to check it, but it is there in order to flexibly compile the transcript for you. At the Translanguaging Lab, we do a lot of transcription of dialogue that uses translanguaging. This is a really helpful tool. Whereas in Otter, you have to select either English or French. It does not automatically go between one and the other. This does. It takes a second for it to go, and then you have to check it. So that is super helpful. I'm going to switch and then there is also the AI tool that is available to support the coding. I have not played around with that yet, so I don't really feel comfortable talking about it, but I know that there is a component for AI to support coding as well. Then there is a tutorial video about that. So there you go. Switching French, English right there. Pretty fast too. Yeah, it's not perfect. You have to fix it, but it's a good start. And you edit it right there. And you can assign who the speaker was, speaker one, speaker zero, and then you would have the transcription. I'm gonna switch us back. Okay. Actually, before we talk about this, I want to show you the forms. Okay, so I'm gonna exit out of this. I want to go to forms. So there's a default form, and then there's the humanizing pedagogy form that we're using. But you can make another form. So let's add a form so you can kind of see what this looks like. Um, and so in the chat, what would you like for us to look at? What is something that you have been investigating that you would like to help us to develop a coding form for? So we've been looking a lot at linguistic landscapes. There was the call to prayer. So there were soundscapes that were happening. There were languages that were happening. Would we want to do like a linguistic landscapes? Like maybe if we uploaded like a call to prayer video, we could do that. Does that sound okay, Steve? Okay. Okay. So we want to add a button to this form, and the moments maybe maybe first there is some kind of initiating sound in the call to prayer, maybe. Changing sound. We want to use this as a toggle button. This allows you to have that lead time. So we could increase the time. So like maybe you want to know what's happening 5 seconds before. So let's up that to 5. And then we can pick our color, whatever we want, and press save. So maybe we have that. We get another button. Maybe we want to see people's responses, like they're turning their heads or looking up, trying to find the sound. So responses. Call again. This is toggle button. Probably not 5. I think 3 is probably good here because you don't want too much extra time in there. Let's save. And pretty easy. And then you would just simply upload the video, and then you're just click on and it's going. It toggles, and then click to toggle it off. Nice, pretty easy, pretty simple to create. Okay. Before I talk about any upcoming events, let's see. Anything? Are there any questions about the forms or the videos?
There was a question that was just dropped in the chat about AI-powered analysis.
So I have not used the AI-powered analysis. I know that there is an AI component there. It's my understanding that it's primarily being used to support like teacher reflection, not so much to support qualitative research analysis. But so as a teacher could upload a video of of their own teaching, and it helps provide like a summary of what has happened in that particular instructional event. But I have not used the AI component of it, so I would not be an expert to respond to that. But there are these tutorials here. So here we go. How to create them, how to set your privacy settings. Let's see. Mosaic. There's nothing about the AI component, but I know there is an AI component to the platform. If I learn more, I'm happy to share with the group who is here. Yeah.
Dr. King, there's a message in the chat from Emir with Vosaic, who says
Yes.
that the AI feature is multimodal. It looks at transcript and video, and Emir put an email address here if anybody would like a short demo.
Yeah, so this is Emir, and he's here with us in our conversation today. So he certainly would be an expert on the different features of Vosaic. Thank you, Jeanne.
You're welcome. I didn't think you could see that at the same time doing all the other things.
I can chime in if you guys want me to. I just didn't want to interrupt. This is Amir.
That would be great.
Yeah, so it looks like we don't have AI enabled on your account, but what it does, it's a multimodal analysis. It looks at the transcript and the video, and it's based on your prompts. So let's say if you have your own rubric, you can upload it and it will analyze video based on that rubric. Or you can ask a question that is just like an open-ended question about the video, and it will analyze it, and it will always cite research that it used to give you feedback. I hope that helps. I can show you if you, I don't want to hijack your presentation, but I can show you if you'd like, but how that looks like. But yeah, that's what it does.
I think that's really helpful. And so now we know we can reach out to you for more information on the AI component of Vosaic. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I have a question. It might be a question that Amir could answer as well, but I was just curious as I was thinking about the capacity of this tool for multilingual research, and I hadn't seen that feature before that you showed us, Nicole, so it was really cool to see how it could pull out the transcript. And right, I don't think there are a lot of tools that can do that, like Otter AI, I don't believe does that. I was curious, maybe the AI capability helps with this, but to what extent could you ask Vosaic or program Vosaic to say, pull out all of the instances of Arabic use or all of the instances so that you could see all of those moments where if you wanted to understand the translanguaging happening in a French classroom, you could ask for those specific moments to be pulled out. Is that something that already exists without the AI tool or perhaps with the AI tool when you're using the platform?
It would exist with AI enabled. So you could ask open-ended question, at which point does the teacher use French? And it will give you timestamps of every time French is used. Or, it can be qualitative or quantitative question. And you can ask how many questions does a teacher ask, and it will tell you the number with timestamps, or qualitative would be more described. Yeah. It will do both.
Yeah, that's a great question.
And the other thing is, if you are our AI also, if you ask a question in Arabic, it will answer in Arabic. So if you ask in Spanish, it will answer in Spanish. So it's not always English.
Yeah. And then I see another question from Sujin Kim on comparing Mosaic to Go React. So I've used both Go React and Mosaic before. I think probably pretty similar in terms of the ways that teachers are interacting with them. So with teachers, I've had them upload a video where they're discussing their lesson plan and then upload the actual enactment of the lesson plan and upload their reflection tool. And they're in groups of 4 where they are able to provide comment to each other kind of throughout the video. Basically, they are kind of like marking up coding it. With Mosaic, it would be a little bit different. The teachers could upload the videos to a project, so like they would all be in the same project, and then probably the instructor would then create the coding window for them of kind of what they were then coding for. So I think GoReact might allow for a little bit more flexibility in the ways in which the teachers are responding, because I know they can type a comment, they can do a video response, and they can do an audio response to the specific moments along the way. I think in some ways, Mosaic leans more towards as a research tool than a professional reflection tool for teachers. But I think that in terms of reflection, you would get kind of similar responses.
Now, if I can just add, we do have a text and video feedback as well. And every of those moments that you selected, you could leave a comment or a video response. In fact, that's kind of like a lot of us field supervision is done with Vosaic that way. And one big difference, if I can say this, is that Vosaic moments have a duration. Like what you said, Nicole, you can code moments that have a duration. Go React is all about what happened, but not for how long it happened. You cannot do that. And because you don't have those moments with durations, you cannot export them as clips. So you just have time frames with the timestamps with the comments which is really good start. It's good
Yeah.
anyway, but yeah, that's a kind of one of the big differences.
No, that's an important point because you're hitting it at that particular moment when it starts. Whereas with Mosaic, you're getting the clips that are nice and easy to pull out that then you can talk about and reflect upon later. Any other questions? So data analysis question. Can you talk a little bit more about what comes next in your analysis once you identify the coded clips? What's the process for deeper analysis of individual? Yep. So once you have those individual clips, then you can take the transcript, check the transcript, and then I personally would watch it over and over again, looking for contextualization cues as well. I use a lot, like Sigrid Norris, her multimodal interaction analysis, like the ways in which she talks about modal density and how people are communicating information. So like Jeanne talked about solidarity of like going and standing in spatial proximity and then sitting down to be with Van to show that solidarity. So then going through and then line by line. Actually, I'm gonna switch my share so you can kind of see what that would look like because I had a little clip over okay. Of kind of what that looks like. It looks like that. So like I would go like line by line, looking at those contextualization cues, and then I would do another layer of analysis here, looking at modal density, modal complexity, and the ways in which that's being conveyed. For this particular data set, I also was doing a transitivity analysis. And so like through the transitivity analysis was how I was getting at the ways in which linguistically, how the messages, like the complexity of the messages were being conveyed. So I think this is a great start of like clipping out these specific moments. I think it's perfect for helping teachers to reflect and like working in PLCs. The clips are there, the transcript is there for the presentation, and then you need to go and really look carefully at each of the units of analysis to see like what are all the messages that are being conveyed. Yeah, so can we use Mosaic to analyze the recordings? So yes, so there's the AI feature. So like if you have the AI feature, you could use Mosaic to analyze the recordings and you would just tell Mosaic what you would like for it to analyze. Yeah. And then Amir put his contact information there for Vosaic. I know that as a Translanguaging Lab, we really appreciated using Vosaic and found to be a really helpful tool in qualitative data analysis. Okay, and we'll screw us forward. Okay. These are upcoming events for the Translanguaging Lab. So this Friday, one of our own, Dr. Steve Christmas, will be talking about unpacking the complex journey of developing critical language awareness, identity, resistance, and transformation. And then Dr. Hamman-Ortiz presenting with her colleagues on May 6th on Translanguaging at School, review literature. And then we have a great panel discussion with Dr. Christmas and some of his colleagues thinking about contemplations on bilingual special education and the role of translanguaging. So I'm going to put those there, and then there's that information there. And we could keep taking questions for another 4 minutes, but I did want to plug the URI Translanguaging Lab one more time. Oh, thank you, Dr. Hamman-Ortiz, for putting in the links to sign up for the next registrations. Do we need to fill out a form to receive a certificate?
Mm.
So we are not offering a continuing learning unit for this talk. I think that is something that we have thought about for future Translanguaging Lab events, but we are not yet able to provide that. I am so sorry. Well,
And I just wanted to add that I put the link as well to register for the future webinars, but also we'll have the recordings from this webinar and the past webinar up there. So if you want to watch again or share this with someone, we'll have the recordings there. And thank you so much, Nicole and Jeanne. This was great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great rest of your week and have a great weekend. Happy spring.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.